in Search of Porcelain, Ólöf Erla, Brynhildur, and Snæbjörn. Welcome to the Hope Forum. I know you are in Ólöf's studio, ceramic studio in Kópavogur. I know the studio quite well. It's a beautiful studio with very high ceiling, and there's a lot of amazing, interesting, beautiful objects made in the studio. Ólöf Erla is a very important force in the design and the ceramic community in Iceland. She has been educating probably most of the younger generations of ceramic artists in Iceland and designers, and often collaborating with Brynhildur Pálsdóttir, who is a genius in collaborating with other creative minds. She's like a conductor of music, and she brings people together and brings them into interesting design projects. And there she is, along with her husband Snæbjörn Guðmundsson, who's a geologist, and they have been working on this research of the Icelandic, or search for the Icelandic porcelain now since 2016. And it's a beautiful story because to me, this is one of those stories that are important for us here in Iceland because for us to be able to find local resources is so important. Like I explained a little bit before, we are an island and most materials, raw materials, need to be imported here. So everything becomes very expensive, very complicated when we want to produce things or manufacture things. So what they are doing, I think, is pretty amazing, and it's also a beautiful story. So I'm going to give them the floor, take over. Welcome.
Thank you. We are going to share our screen. Oops. And do full screen. Is it working?
Yes, you just need full screen.
Okay, so it's full screen.
Maybe try at the top if there's another way to do full screen.
Stop share and sharing again.
Yeah, I'll just stop and do it again. Oops. Like this. And now, is it working?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Super. So nice being here with you today. So we are going to talk about our project in Search of Porcelain. It's kind of like an exploration of the possibilities with the Icelandic minerals. Yeah. So as Ragna introduced us, we are a designer, ceramicist, and geologist, and we kind of mix all our knowledge together in this project in a really nice way. I think it's been such fun doing this all together. And porcelain, it's a really kind of interesting material, and we really wanted to look at the possibilities. Is it possible to make porcelain in Iceland? And to do that, we need to look at the geology. And Snæbjörn is going to take us a little bit to
I'll tell you a little bit about Iceland in general and the scope of Iceland compared to other countries. First of all, well, we're a kind of strange country, or the bedrock here is really different from the other countries around us. That's one of the main reasons we don't have the raw materials like in Europe, North America, Asia, Africa, and all of the big countries, the continents. So if you look at the first slide, you can see the reason is that we are much younger. So Iceland is about 60 million years old, the oldest part of the country, compared to other countries, Scandinavia, UK, Europe, Greenland, which are all tens of millions or hundreds of millions years old. And that's mainly because we are part of the ocean floor. So so Iceland formed as the continents grew apart. So it's because of the tectonic plates, they're moving apart, and Iceland formed out of the ocean. So first as a land bridge, but then it grew into an island. So Iceland is, it's really different from the continents when we look at the rocks here. So instead of having granite, calcareous rocks, or the bedrocks in Scandinavia and UK, we are constantly in the making, and so it's a volcanic island, and you might know about the eruption, which is ongoing right now.
Yeah.
Should have a look.
We can look at it's a live feed. You
see this? Maybe not.
I don't know. Anyway, we can always watch the volcano. It's live.
Yeah, there was a link there to the on the national broadcasting station, ruv.is. You can have a look at the volcanic eruption, which is ongoing right now. So we have two forces: the construction, which are the volcanic eruptions, and then we have a destruction, which are wind, glaciers, and rivers, which are constantly breaking apart the volcanic rocks. But this means we almost only have rocks that are made of,
earthquakes.
Earthquakes. This is a nice photo of people looking at the rifts we have. And so that means that the middle part of Iceland is new, and then we have older parts to the east and to the west. And so compared to the continents, almost all of Iceland is made out of basalt, and basalt is really poor in economic elements, because it's made of the ocean floor rocks. So this is basalt, all really gray or brown, basalt. We have a few places which are not basalt, but they still are not of economic value. So more basalt. Basalt is pretty beautiful, but really poor in human user-friendly elements, if we can use that word. But because geology and the earth is not always predictable, there are few places in Iceland that coincidences happen, and this place is one of that. So this used to be a geothermal area 10 million years ago, but coincidentally we can see it on the surface right now. So this is the material we use in porcelain.
And just to go back and just look at the context of porcelain, what it is and where it came from. It was developed in China, and in 1295 Marco Polo is said that he brought the first item of porcelain back to Europe from China, and this is possibly one of the first items that arrived to Europe. And porcelain was like a huge mystery to all the Europeans. Nobody knew. I mean, Europeans had been making stoneware and earthenware, but this new material was totally new. White, strong, high-fired, and people got the porcelain fever or porcelain krankheit. And everywhere people were trying to find out, like, what is the secret recipe behind porcelain? And it's really interesting to read about this story and the search for this material. It was this guy, Augustus the Strong of Saxony. He had like a big porcelain fever, and he collected porcelain, and he actually had two guys working for him constantly, trying to figure out what the recipe was of porcelain. And they found out that porcelain is made out of feldspar, kaolin, and quartz. And in 1710, they figured it out, and Augustus started the Meissen porcelain factory. And they started to produce porcelain. This is one of the first items that they produced. And quickly the production developed, and they were making this just a few years later. And it's amazing to see how the technique and the quality of the work developed. And the recipe started to travel around Europe, and porcelain factories started to, pop up everywhere. And they did in Denmark. This lady, Juliana Marie, she was a queen in Denmark. And at that time, Iceland was part of the Danish crown, yeah. And they were working on making a porcelain factory in Copenhagen. And at the time, two guys, they were explorers. They were writing, explored Iceland and the nature, and wrote a book on these travels. And they were talking about the place that had this white earth that was really interesting, pale white earth. And the people in Denmark were like, okay, this could be a porcelain earth. So they sent a guy from Copenhagen to explore this further and take samples with the thought of maybe using it as a material to make porcelain. So that's the first contact Iceland had with porcelain making. The guy Nikolai Moore went to Iceland, filled a few barrels of this white earth, but the ship disappeared and the barrels never arrived in Copenhagen, and then the story of Iceland and porcelain just disappeared and was forgotten.
Yes. Still, we were poor of resources. We had knowingly no clay. We had barely no wood. So we really couldn't fire any porcelain or make things. But we had driftwood, and this is an old plate made of driftwood, and it was so precious that you mended it to be able to use it further on. And that was the same thing about things made of clay. They were very rare, they were very precious. And you mended it with, you could, what do you say?
Make holes.
Make holes and sew it together with a thread and boil it in milk. And then you had like a new mended plate. Mm-hmm. So yes, it was so precious. We were talking about how young geologically Iceland is. And the middle part is the youngest, and but the bleikja, which is the kaolin source, we find it in the. Can I point? Nay, where the cross is, where nearly Iceland is cut in two parts. There we have this old main volcano, and we have this mine of kaolin. And other places we were going to was Slöfrudalur, where we found granite. It's unpronounceable, sorry. And then Reykjanes, where we found some silica. And these are the main materials we need to make porcelain. But it was not very simple, but we had those things, and we started with our bare hands. But we can see now, this is the bleikja, which is, bleikja means really pale or white in Old Icelandic. and it is really white.
Yeah.
And this is the place high up in the mountains where the kaolin was found, the bleikja.
And this is the only place in Iceland where you can find this white earth.
Yes, in that amount.
And so pure.
So pure and so beautiful, as you see. It's so white, you can mix it up with snow.
Yeah.
Like you see here, they are standing in the middle of the kaolin, but behind them there is this small snow flake.
Yeah.
And it was really an adventure. You could stand in the middle of this precious material, and you dug, and it was like a fine, I don't know, it's a cream or something, smooth, fine, dense, heavy. So when we took it in our rucksacks, it was really heavy going up the steep hills again. But in between, we sat down and had this wonderful, wonderful picnic with homemade cake and coffee made on the spot, water from the creek.
Yeah, and we had to hike back. It took us 2 hours to hike to the place and 2 hours plus to hike back because it was really heavy to carry all this material.
It was so heavy, and you see the steep hills we had to go.
And I mean, there are no roads to go there, and it's quite difficult to take a horse.
Really?
Yeah. So
it was used so it wasn't used at the beginning, for porcelain, but it was used in the middle of the 20th century. So the British, they came and took some like 50 tons and brought it for using it in the World War, but it has been no use for Icelanders because it's so remote. It's impossible to take it.
And then the other material, granite, and from the granite we get feldspar.
Yeah, we get actually both feldspar and quartz. So 2 of the main materials or elements used.
And this is in the east, so the kaolin is in the west, and the granite is in the east.
And both are very rare.
Yeah. And it's quite like rare to see white stones in Iceland. Like you saw before, everything is kind of black.
Yeah, really grayish.
So we had to walk into this valley and pick white stones and carry them back. That was quite heavy as well.
These are beautiful, but of course for people in Scandinavia, UK, Europe, the US, almost everywhere else, this is most common rock, granite. It's almost as common as basalt is in Iceland. But for us, it's really rare.
And it's a hard rock, isn't it?
Really hard.
Really hard.
Much harder than basalt.
Yeah.
And then we used some silica from Reykjanes, and that is kind of like a byproduct from the geothermal
power plant.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of it. It's, if you know the Blue Lagoon, we have a lot of silica there. But it comes up with the geothermal water, so it's a byproduct. It's kind of natural, but
and good for your face. It makes you younger, just as kaolin also.
Yeah, and then we took all these materials back to the workshop and started to clean them,
grind them, clean them, sieve them, dry them again, and try to make some plastic material to work with. And making tests, endless tests. And grinding the granite was really something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really hard.
And then we cleaned the granite with, like it had a lot of iron.
Yeah, because porcelain people want it to be white.
White, yes.
Yeah, but as you can see, the granite is not really completely white. So we had to try to get some of the iron minerals, and we used a magnet for that.
Yeah. And this is, I am throwing there just the kaolin from the bleikja, from the place where we found it, and it's clean, and it was so smooth and good to throw. So we will. That's one direction we will continue to make. But
yeah.
And then we had the tests.
Yeah, and then we made like I don't know how many tests. Yeah, and it was mixing it in different volumes and firing it. Some samples survived, others didn't.
Because there are so many fields we're testing. This is like firing range, shrinkage, color, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a long way to go yet, but we have come far.
I mean, of course, these tests have been done, you know, abroad, but not with Icelandic minerals.
No.
Not at all. So we had to go you know, around it.
And then we were kind of like, we did this illustration to kind of understand what happens in the firing process. And it's like the journey of the porcelain in the firing. And this is kind of the result from our first experiments. And it was really interesting to see the colors, because you can't make super white Icelandic porcelain.
But we think this is a beautiful color.
Yeah, the color palette was really interesting. And it's kind of in this brown, blue, gray, yellowish. Yeah. And
but we have white.
A little bit,
in one corner.
Yeah. And here are the samples with the materials.
Raw materials.
And yeah, so we decided to, because it was so exciting to see what we could do, that we continued and develop the blends better.
And in the end,
yeah, and so like the last things we've been making is kind of, we made molds of. It's so funny when you hike, we are always like picking up stones and little pieces of wood or things that we find, and we make molds of these little items. And because, I mean, we couldn't make huge things because it's so precious, and we only have like, you know,
small amount.
Yeah, limited amount of material. We made this. We turned the material back into stones and natural elements.
We poured them in molds of plaster and made stones again from the stones.
Yeah.
Stones turned into stones.
Yeah.
These are the
and this project is like a continuous thing.
Yes.
And we have a website and Instagram where you can follow the project. And thank you so much.
So thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.